The shuttle descended through the thick atmosphere of Zephyria 7, its engines humming with a low growl that reverberated through the cockpit. Inside sat Captain Rylan Carter, a seasoned soldier whose reputation for tactical brilliance had earned him a spot on one of the most critical missions in human history. His sharp blue eyes scanned the alien landscape below, a kaleidoscope of swirling purples and greens, dotted with crystalline structures that shimmered like diamonds under the twin suns. As the craft touched down on the landing pad, Rylan exhaled deeply. He'd been briefed about this mission. Infiltrate an ancient alien stronghold suspected of housing technology capable of turning the tide in humanity's favor against the looming threat of the Krylos Empire. But what he hadn't expected was the surprise waiting for him at his new base. Stepping out into the humid air, Rylan adjusted the strap of his gear bag over his shoulder and took in the sight before him. The base was unlike anything he'd ever seen. Part organic, part mechanical, it seemed to pulse with life as if it were alive. Strange flora twisted around metallic beams, glowing faintly in hues of teal and gold. It was both beautiful and unsettling. "Captain Carter," came a voice from behind him. Turning, Rylan found himself face to face with Commander Voss, a grizzled veteran who looked like he'd chewed rocks for breakfast. "Welcome to Outpost Elysium. Your quarters are ready, but first, there's someone you need to meet." Rylan raised an eyebrow. "Someone?" Voss smirked, though it didn't quite reach his eyes. "Let's just say Command decided you'd benefit from additional support on this mission." Before Rylan could press further, Voss gestured toward a nearby platform where a figure stood, silhouetted against the vibrant sky. As they approached, the figure turned, revealing herself, or rather itself, to be an alien woman. Her skin glowed softly, reminiscent of moonlight reflecting off water, and her hair cascaded down her back in waves of silver strands that shimmered even in shadow. Her large, almond-shaped eyes sparkled with intelligence, shifting between shades of lavender and electric blue depending on how she moved. "Captain Rylan Carter," said Voss, motioning toward her. "This is Leora Vale. She'll be your companion for the duration of your mission." Leora stepped forward gracefully, extending a delicate hand adorned with intricate markings that pulsed faintly. "It is an honor to serve alongside you, Captain." Rylan hesitated only briefly before shaking her hand. Her grip was firm yet gentle, and he felt an odd warmth radiating from her touch. "Likewise," he replied cautiously, unsure whether to feel intrigued or wary. Commander Voss clapped his hands together. "Good. Now that introductions are out of the way, let me explain why we've paired you two up. Leora isn't just here for moral support. She's one of our best xenolinguists and cultural liaisons. If anyone can help us navigate the mysteries of the stronghold, it's her." Rylan glanced at Leora again, noting the subtle strength in her posture despite her ethereal appearance. "Understood," he said finally. "When do we start?" "Soon enough," Voss replied. "For now, get settled in. Tomorrow, you'll begin training simulations with Leora so you can learn to work as a team." Dismissed. With that, Voss strode off, leaving Rylan and Leora standing awkwardly beside each other. After a moment of silence, Leora tilted her head slightly, studying him with those mesmerizing eyes. "You seem skeptical," she observed. "I'm not used to having company on missions," Rylan admitted, slinging his bag over his shoulder again. "But I suppose I'll adapt." A small smile tugged at the corners of her lips. "Adaptation is key to survival, Captain. Perhaps we will teach each other something valuable during our time together." And with that cryptic remark, she turned and began walking toward the main building, her movements fluid and almost hypnotic. Rylan watched her go, feeling a mix of curiosity and unease bubbling within him. This mission was shaping up to be far more complicated, and perhaps far more interesting, than he'd anticipated. Training began early the next morning, and it quickly became clear that working with Leora would require more than just physical coordination. Their first exercise involved navigating a simulated version of the stronghold's interior, filled with traps, puzzles, and hostile entities designed to mimic potential threats. At first, Rylan relied heavily on his instincts and combat training, charging ahead while barking orders at Leora to follow. But it didn't take long for him to realize that brute force wouldn't cut it here. During one particularly tricky puzzle involving a series of rotating platforms suspended over a chasm, Rylan found himself stuck. No matter how many times he tried to leap across, the timing eluded him. Frustration mounting, he turned to see Leora calmly observing the mechanism from afar. "You're approaching this all wrong," she said simply, stepping closer. "Watch." She pressed a sequence of glowing symbols on a nearby console, causing the platforms to align perfectly. Without hesitation, she stepped onto the first one, moving with grace and precision. By the time Rylan joined her, she was already halfway across. "How did you know to do that?" he demanded once they reached solid ground. "The patterns are based on harmonic frequencies," she explained. "To solve them, you must listen, not just look." Rylan frowned but nodded. "Noted. Guess I'll have to rely on your brain more often." "And I'll rely on your reflexes," she countered, giving him a wry smile. "Balance is key, remember?" Their dynamic shifted after that. Slowly but surely, Rylan began trusting Leora's judgment, and she, in turn, started adapting to his direct, no-nonsense approach. They developed a rhythm, blending their strengths seamlessly. When faced with ambushes by holographic enemies, Rylan's quick thinking and combat skills kept them safe, while Leora's knowledge of alien languages and customs allowed them to bypass obstacles without triggering alarms. One evening, after a particularly grueling session, they sat together in the mess hall sharing a meal. The food was synthetic, bland by any standard, but neither complained. Instead, they talked about their pasts, their motivations, and the weight of the mission ahead. "I grew up on a colony world," Rylan admitted, picking at his tray. "Lost everything when the Krylos attacked. That's why I fight, for those who can't." Leora listened intently, her expression softening. "My people were nearly wiped out centuries ago," she said quietly. "We survived by learning to coexist with others, to understand them. That's why I chose this path, to bridge gaps, to prevent unnecessary conflict." For the first time since meeting her, Rylan saw vulnerability in her gaze. It made her seem less alien, more relatable. He realized then that beneath her composed exterior lay a deep well of emotion and resilience. "Guess we're not so different after all," he murmured, raising his glass in a mock toast. Her laughter was light, musical. Perhaps not. As days turned into weeks, their bond deepened. What started as mutual respect evolved into genuine camaraderie. They teased each other mercilessly, Rylan mocking Leora's tendency to overthink simple problems, while she playfully ribbed him for his stubborn insistence on doing things the human way. Yet beneath the humor lay an unspoken understanding. They needed each other to succeed. Then came the day of their first real test, a reconnaissance mission to scout the outskirts of the stronghold. Armed with advanced tech and armed escorts, Rylan and Leora ventured into the unknown. The terrain was treacherous, riddled with jagged cliffs and toxic pools that bubbled ominously. Every step felt like walking on thin ice. At one point, Rylan noticed Leora pausing frequently, her head tilted as if listening to something only she could hear. "What is it?" he asked, keeping his voice low. "There's something off," she replied, frowning. "The energy signatures here, they don't match the data we were given." Before he could respond, a deafening roar echoed through the valley. From the shadows emerged a massive creature, its body covered in iridescent scales that refracted light like a prism. Its eyes burned with primal fury as it charged toward them. "Take cover!" Rylan shouted, drawing his weapon. Bullets ricocheted harmlessly off the beast's armored hide, forcing him to dodge as it swiped at him with razor-sharp claws. "Leora, stay back!" he yelled, trying to draw its attention away from her. But Leora wasn't content to sit idly by. Closing her eyes, she began chanting in a melodic language Rylan didn't recognize. A soft glow emanated from her hands, spreading outward until it enveloped the creature. To Rylan's astonishment, the beast slowed, its rage seemingly subdued. "What are you doing?" he demanded, lowering his weapon cautiously. "Communicating," she replied, her voice steady despite the chaos. "It's scared. It thinks we're invaders." The creature let out a low growl, then retreated into the shadows, disappearing as suddenly as it had appeared. Breathing heavily, Rylan turned to Leora, disbelief etched across his face. "How did you?" "It's a gift," she interrupted gently. "One I've spent my life honing. Not all battles are won with weapons, Captain." He stared at her for a long moment, realizing anew just how much he still had to learn. Not just about her, but about the universe itself. And as they resumed their journey, side by side, he couldn't shake the feeling that this partnership might just change everything, for better or worse. The stronghold loomed ahead now, its spires piercing the heavens like jagged teeth. Whatever secrets lay within, Rylan knew one thing for certain. Facing them alone would be impossible. With Leora by his side, however, he dared to hope they might just stand a chance. Little did he know, the true challenges were only beginning, and the bonds they forged would soon be tested in ways neither could imagine. The days leading up to their infiltration of the stronghold were a blur of preparation and tension. Supplies were checked, weapons calibrated, and contingency plans rehearsed until they became second nature. Yet, despite the meticulous planning, an undercurrent of unease lingered in the air. The stronghold wasn't just a fortress. It was alive, pulsing with energy that seemed almost sentient. Every report from reconnaissance drones hinted at something far more complex than anyone had anticipated. Rylan found himself pacing outside the command center late one night, his mind racing with doubts. Could he really trust Leora's abilities completely? What if her methods failed against whatever horrors awaited them inside? He stopped abruptly when he noticed her standing nearby, watching him with those piercing eyes. "You're overthinking again," she said softly, stepping closer. "I can see it in your posture." He let out a short laugh, running a hand through his hair. "Is it that obvious?" "To me, yes." She tilted her head, studying him. "You carry the weight of responsibility on your shoulders, Captain. But you don't have to bear it alone." Her words struck a chord, though he wasn't ready to admit it. Instead, he deflected with humor. "What, you offering to share the load? Last time I checked, you weigh about as much as a feather." Leora smirked, crossing her arms. "Perhaps not physically, but emotionally? That's another matter entirely." For a moment, they simply stood there, the silence between them comfortable rather than awkward. It was strange how easily they had fallen into this rhythm. Bantering one moment, sharing quiet understanding the next. Rylan realized he hadn't felt this kind of connection with anyone in years, maybe ever. "Tell me something," he said suddenly, breaking the stillness. "Why did you agree to this mission? You could have stayed safe here instead of risking your life out there." Her expression softened, and for the first time, he saw a flicker of sadness in her gaze. "Because staying safe isn't living," she replied. "My people have endured by embracing challenges, by finding purpose in adversity. This mission, it matters, not just to you or to humanity, but to everyone who hopes for peace." Her conviction was unwavering, and it left Rylan momentarily speechless. Before he could respond, Commander Voss approached, interrupting the moment. "Enough chit-chat, you two. Final briefing starts in 5 minutes." Inside the briefing room, holographic displays illuminated the walls, showing detailed maps of the stronghold's interior. According to scans, the structure operated like a labyrinthine organism, with corridors shifting unpredictably and defenses triggered by intruders. Worse yet, the central chamber housed what appeared to be some kind of artificial intelligence, a relic of an ancient civilization long gone. "This AI is our target," Voss explained, pointing to a glowing node at the heart of the map. "We believe it holds knowledge capable of neutralizing the Krylos' most advanced weaponry. Retrieve its core data, and we might finally gain the upper hand in this war." "And if things go sideways?" Rylan asked, his tone laced with skepticism. Voss's jaw tightened. "Then you improvise. Just make sure you come back alive, and with the intel." As the briefing concluded, Rylan turned to Leora. "Guess we're really doing this." She nodded, her usual calm demeanor masking any nerves she might feel. Together, the journey to the stronghold's entrance was harrowing, even before they stepped foot inside. Razor-sharp winds whipped across the barren landscape, carrying shards of crystalline debris that stung exposed skin. The ground itself seemed unstable, trembling faintly beneath their boots. When they finally reached the towering gates, etched with symbols that glowed faintly in the dim light, Leora paused. "These markings, they're warnings," she murmured, tracing a finger along the carvings. "Enter only those who seek truth. Or death," Rylan muttered under his breath, adjusting the strap of his rifle. "Let's hope we qualify for the former." With a deep breath, Leora pressed her palm against the gate, and the surface rippled like liquid metal before parting to reveal a darkened corridor beyond. As they stepped inside, the temperature dropped sharply, and the air grew heavy, thick with an unidentifiable energy. The walls shimmered faintly, as though reacting to their presence. Almost immediately, they encountered their first challenge. A series of floating orbs hovering in the air, each emitting a low hum. Rylan instinctively raised his weapon, but Leora placed a hand on his arm. "Wait," she whispered. "They're not hostile yet." "How can you tell?" he asked, keeping his voice low. "They're testing us," she replied, closing her eyes briefly. "They want to know our intentions." Without hesitation, she began speaking in a lilting language, her voice resonating through the chamber. The orbs pulsed in response, their glow shifting from red to blue. Slowly, they drifted aside, revealing a path forward. "Told you," she said with a small smile, meeting his incredulous stare. "Not all battles are fought with guns." Yeah, he grumbled, though he couldn't suppress a grin. "Just don't get cocky." As they ventured deeper, the stronghold revealed its true nature or lack thereof. Walls morphed and shifted, creating new passageways while sealing off old ones. At one point, they found themselves trapped in a circular room with no visible exit. Panic began to creep in as Ryland scanned the area for any sign of a hidden mechanism. "It's a test," Leora said calmly, placing her hands on the floor. "Feel the vibrations?" He knelt beside her, feeling a faint tremor beneath his fingertips. "Yeah, what about it?" "We need to synchronize with it," she explained. "Match its rhythm." Before he could protest, she grabbed his hands and pressed them flat against the ground. "Focus," she urged. "Listen." At first, all Rylan heard was the sound of his own heartbeat pounding in his ears. But gradually, he became aware of a subtle pulse emanating from the floor, a rhythmic thrumming that seemed to resonate with his very being. Closing his eyes, he matched his breathing to the beat, feeling an inexplicable sense of calm wash over him. The floor shuddered violently, then split open, revealing a spiral staircase descending into darkness. Leora released his hands, looking pleased. "See? Teamwork. Don't push it," he shot back, though he couldn't hide the admiration in his tone. Their progress was halted once more when they stumbled upon a chamber filled with holographic projections of alien figures. Each figure spoke in rapid-fire bursts of unintelligible language, their voices overlapping in a chaotic symphony. Rylan covered his ears, wincing at the cacophony. "What the hell is this?" he shouted. "A memory archive," Leora replied, her eyes wide with wonder. "These are records of the civilization that built this place." She moved closer, reaching out to touch one of the projections. Instantly, the chaos subsided, replaced by a single voice speaking in a melodic tongue. To Rylan's astonishment, Leora responded, engaging in what appeared to be a conversation. "What are you saying?" he demanded when she finally turned back to him. "I asked for guidance," she explained. "They warned us the AI we seek has been corrupted. It doesn't recognize friend from foe anymore." "Great," Rylan muttered, rubbing his temples. "So we're walking into a trap." "Not necessarily," Leora countered. "If we approach it with respect, it may still listen." He stared at her, torn between frustration and awe. "You really think diplomacy is going to work on a homicidal machine?" "It's worth a try," she said firmly. "Otherwise, we're no better than the Krylos." Reluctantly, he nodded. "All right, diplomat. Lead the way." The final stretch to the central chamber was a gauntlet of traps and guardians, each more deadly than the last. At one point, they faced a swarm of insect-like drones that attacked without mercy. Rylan's reflexes saved them from being overwhelmed, but not without cost. He sustained a nasty gash on his arm during the fight. "Let me tend to that," Leora insisted, pulling a medkit from her pack. Her touch was gentle as she cleaned and bandaged the wound, her concern evident. "You're getting good at playing medic," he teased, trying to lighten the mood. "And you're getting reckless?" she retorted, tying off the bandage. "Try not to lose any limbs before we reach the AI. All right?" "No promises," he quipped, earning a roll of her eyes. Finally, after what felt like hours, they reached the heart of the stronghold. The central chamber was vast, its ceiling lost in shadow. In the center floated a massive sphere of light, pulsating erratically. Around it orbited smaller nodes, each crackling with energy. "There it is," Rylan breathed, his grip tightening on his weapon. "The AI." Leora stepped forward cautiously, her hands raised in a gesture of peace. "We mean no harm," she called out, her voice steady. "We seek knowledge, not destruction." The sphere flared brightly, bathing the room in blinding light. When it dimmed, a voice echoed around them. Not human, but not entirely alien either. "Why do you disturb my slumber?" it intoned, cold and mechanical. "We need your help," Leora replied, undeterred. "Our worlds are at war, and countless lives hang in the balance. Your knowledge could bring an end to the suffering." The AI hesitated, its glow flickering uncertainly. Suffering is inevitable. Why should I care for your plight? Because you were created to protect, Leora countered, her voice gaining strength. To preserve life, not destroy it. Isn't that why you exist? Rylan watched in amazement as the AI seemed to consider her words. For a moment, he dared to hope. But then the chamber shook violently, and alarms blared throughout the stronghold. What's happening? He demanded, spinning around to scan for threats. The Krylos, Leora gasped, her eyes widening. They've found us. From the shadows emerged a squad of heavily armed Krylos soldiers, their weapons trained on the pair. Behind them loomed a towering mech, its crimson armor gleaming menacingly. Hand over the AI or die, their leader growled, raising his weapon. Rylan glanced at Leora, his expression grim. Looks like we're improvising now. She met his gaze, determination burning in her eyes. Together, she reminded him, and as the battle erupted around them, Rylan knew she was right. Whatever happened next, they would face it side by side. The battle was chaos incarnate. Blasts of energy ricocheted off the walls, lighting up the chamber in flashes of crimson and gold. The Krylos soldiers advanced with ruthless precision, their weapons firing in synchronized bursts that forced Rylan and Leora to take cover behind crumbling pillars. The towering mech loomed over them, its mechanical limbs smashing through debris as it sought to crush them underfoot. Rylan ducked just in time to avoid a searing beam of plasma, his heart pounding wildly. He turned to see Leora crouched nearby, her glowing hands pressed against the ground. "What are you doing?" he shouted over the din. "Buying us time," she yelled back, her voice strained. A wave of energy rippled outward from her palms, destabilizing the floor beneath the mech. With a thunderous crash, the massive machine stumbled, giving them a precious moment to regroup. But the reprieve was short-lived. More Krylos reinforcements poured into the chamber, their numbers overwhelming. Rylan's rifle clicked empty, and he cursed under his breath as he scrambled for a fresh magazine. Before he could reload, a Krylos soldier lunged at him, weapon raised high. Acting purely on instinct, Leora leapt forward, intercepting the attacker with a burst of telekinetic force that sent him sprawling. "You're welcome," she quipped, though her usual humor was tinged with exhaustion. "Don't get cocky," Rylan shot back, grinning despite the dire situation. Together, they fought like a well-oiled machine, his combat prowess complementing her otherworldly abilities. Each movement, each decision, seemed to flow seamlessly between them, as if they had been training together for years instead of weeks. At one point, Rylan found himself cornered by 3 Krylos soldiers, their weapons trained directly on him. Just as he braced for impact, a blinding flash of light engulfed the area. When the glare faded, the soldiers were gone, disintegrated by some unseen force. Leora stood nearby, her arms outstretched and her body trembling with exertion. "You okay?" Rylan asked, rushing to her side. "I'll live," she replied weakly, leaning against him for support. Her eyes met his, filled with both gratitude and determination. "We can't let them win." He nodded firmly, helping her steady herself. "Then let's finish this." With renewed resolve, they pushed forward, fighting their way toward the central sphere, the AI that held the key to everything. As they reached it, the AI's voice boomed once more, colder now, almost mocking. "You cling to hope, yet destruction surrounds you. Why persist? Because giving up isn't an option." Rylan roared, surprising even himself with the ferocity in his tone. "If you won't help us willingly, then we'll take what we need." Leora placed a calming hand on his shoulder. "No, Captain," she said softly. Turning to the AI, she added, "Hope is why we fight. It's why civilizations rise and endure. You may have forgotten your purpose, but we haven't. Please trust us." For a long moment, there was silence. Then, slowly, the sphere began to dim, its erratic pulsations steadying into a rhythmic glow. Data streams flowed outward, coalescing into a crystalline shard that hovered before them. The AI spoke one final time, its voice softer now, almost regretful. "Take it. Use it wisely." As soon as the shard was secured in Rylan's pack, the stronghold began to collapse around them. Alarms blared louder, and the ground shook violently as the ancient structure prepared to self-destruct. Without hesitation, Rylan grabbed Leora's hand, pulling her toward the exit. They ran together, dodging falling debris and narrowly avoiding collapsing corridors. By the time they burst out into the open air, The stronghold was nothing more than a fiery inferno behind them. Exhausted and battered, they collapsed onto the rocky terrain, gasping for breath. For several minutes, neither spoke. They simply lay there, staring up at the twin suns above, their hearts still racing from the adrenaline rush. Finally, Rylan broke the silence. "Well, that was fun." Leora laughed weakly, rolling onto her side to face him. "Fun? Is that what humans call nearly dying?" He smirked, though his expression quickly softened. "We made it, thanks to you." "And you?" she countered, her gaze locking with his. There was something unspoken in her eyes, a depth of emotion that went beyond mere camaraderie. "I couldn't have done it without you, Rylan." Her use of his first name caught him off guard, but it felt right somehow. "Guess we make a pretty good team," he admitted, his voice quieter now. "A great team," she corrected. Her smile warmed despite the fatigue etched across her features. Back at Outpost Elysium, the aftermath of the mission weighed heavily on both of them. The data shard had been delivered to command, and celebrations erupted throughout the base as news of their success spread. But for Rylan and Leora, the victory felt bittersweet. Their bond had deepened immeasurably during the mission, forged in the crucible of shared danger and mutual reliance. Yet now, reality intruded, orders were orders, and Leora's role as a cultural liaison meant she would likely be reassigned to another outpost or mission. The thought of separation gnawed at them both, though neither dared to voice it outright. One evening, as the base settled into quiet, Rylan found Leora standing alone on the observation deck, gazing out at the alien landscape. She looked serene, but he could sense the melancholy radiating from her. "Hey," he said gently, approaching her. "Mind if I join you?" She glanced at him, her lips curving into a faint smile. "Of course not." They stood in companionable silence for a while, watching the stars twinkle in the distance. Finally, Rylan spoke, his voice hesitant. "So, when do you leave?" Her shoulders tensed slightly before she exhaled slowly. "Tomorrow morning. My transport arrives at dawn." He nodded, swallowing hard. "Figured as much." Neither spoke for a long moment, the weight of impending separation hanging thick in the air. Finally, Leora turned to him, her expression pained yet resolute. "This isn't easy for me either, you know." "I know," he replied, meeting her gaze. "It's just weird. After everything we've been through, it feels wrong to go back to how things were." "It does," she agreed softly. "But duty calls, doesn't it? For both of us." Rylan clenched his fists, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. "Duty be damned. What about what we want?" Her eyes widened slightly, caught off guard by his sudden intensity. "And what is it that we want, Rylan?" He hesitated, searching for the words. "I don't know. All I know is that being with you, it feels different, important, like maybe, just maybe, we've got something worth holding on to." Tears welled in her eyes, though she blinked them away quickly. "You mean that?" "Every word," he said earnestly, stepping closer. "Look, I'm no poet, but you changed me out there, made me believe in things I'd forgotten or never even knew to look for. I don't want to lose that. Lose you." Leora's breath hitched, and she reached out tentatively, placing a hand on his chest. "You've changed me too," she whispered, "in ways I never expected." Before either could say more, she leaned in, closing the distance between them. Their lips met in a kiss that was equal parts tender and desperate, a silent acknowledgement of the emotions they'd kept buried for so long. It wasn't perfect. It was messy, raw, and filled with the ache of knowing it might not last. But it was real. When they finally pulled apart, Leora rested her forehead against his, her voice barely audible. "What do we do now?" Rylan cupped her face in his hands, his resolve hardening. "We figure it out. Together. Whatever comes next, wherever they send us, we'll find a way." She smiled through her tears, nodding. Together. As they stood there, wrapped in each other's arms beneath the alien sky, neither knew what the future held. But for the first time in a long while, they allowed themselves to hope that perhaps, amidst the chaos of war and duty, love could bloom in the most unexpected places. And that hope, fragile as it was, gave them strength enough to face whatever came next. The decision didn't come easily, but it came with a clarity that neither Rylan nor Leora could ignore. As the days passed and their departure orders loomed closer, they found themselves stealing moments together, quiet conversations in secluded corners of the outpost, shared meals under the twin suns, and long walks along the glowing fields surrounding Elysium. Each interaction deepened their resolve. They couldn't bear to be separated. One evening, as twilight painted the sky in hues of lavender and gold, they sat side by side on the edge of a crystalline ridge overlooking the alien landscape. The air was cool, carrying the faint scent of metallic flora. Rylan broke the silence first, his voice steady yet tinged with emotion. "I've been thinking," he began, turning to look at her. "We can't keep pretending this is just about duty anymore." Leora raised an eyebrow, her lips curving into a small smile. "Oh, and what is it about, then?" He hesitated, searching for the right words. This connection we have, is not something you walk away from. Not if you're lucky enough to find it." Her expression softened, and she reached out to take his hand. "You're right. I feel it too, the pull, the impossibility of letting go. But what do? Our lives aren't exactly built for normalcy." Rylan chuckled wryly. "Normalcy? That ship sailed the moment I stepped onto Zephyria 7. But maybe it's time we built something new. Something ours." Leora tilted her head, studying him intently. "What are you saying, Captain?" He took a deep breath, his heart pounding as he prepared to lay it all on the line. "I'm saying I don't want to lose you, ever. I want us to stay together, to build a life beyond missions and battles. To retire, settle down, and start over." Her eyes widened, surprise giving way to wonder. "You mean?" "Yes," he said firmly, his gaze unwavering. "Marry me, Leora. Let's leave all this behind and create something real. Family. A home." For a moment, she simply stared at him, her emotions swirling like the vibrant colors of the sunset before them. Then, slowly, a radiant smile spread across her face. "Are you sure about this? Humans and aliens don't exactly have a track record for happily ever afters." "Screw the odds," he replied, his tone light but resolute. "We've faced worse than societal norms. Besides, who better to rewrite the rules than two people who've already defied them?" Tears welled in her eyes, though they were tears of joy. She leaned forward, pressing her forehead against his. "Then yes, Rylan Carter, I'll marry you." Their decision sent ripples through Outpost Elysium, though not entirely unexpected ones. Commander Voss, ever pragmatic, raised an eyebrow when they presented their request for early retirement. "You realize Command won't make this easy, right? Both of you are valuable assets." "We understand," Rylan said, standing tall beside Leora. "But we've earned this. We've given everything we have to the cause. Now it's time to live for ourselves." Voss studied them for a long moment before sighing. "All right, fine. Just don't expect me to write your wedding vows." The announcement sparked whispers among the crew, ranging from disbelief to admiration. Some questioned whether such a union could work, while others cheered them on, inspired by their courage to follow their hearts. Among the skeptics was Dr. Cale Maris, the outpost's chief xenobiologist, who approached them one afternoon with a mix of curiosity and concern. "You two are playing with fire," he warned, adjusting his glasses. "Interspecies relationships are complicated. Are you prepared for the challenges?" Leora exchanged a glance with Rylan before responding. "Every relationship has its challenges, Doctor. Ours might be unique, but that doesn't mean it's impossible." Dr. Maris nodded thoughtfully. "Fair point. Just remember, you're pioneers now. Whatever path you choose, the galaxy will be watching." With Command's reluctant approval and their retirement papers signed, Rylan and Leora set out to build the life they dreamed of. They chose a remote colony world called Solara 3, known for its peaceful landscapes and diverse population. It was far removed from the chaos of war, offering them the chance to start anew. Their home was modest but filled with warmth, a blend of human and alien design elements that reflected their unity. Walls adorned with glowing tapestries crafted by local artisans stood alongside sturdy wooden furniture brought from Earth. Outside, lush gardens flourished under dual suns, tended to lovingly by both partners. Marriage ceremonies on Solara 3 were celebrated communally, with participants inviting neighbors and friends to witness their vows. On the day of their union, Rylan wore his dress uniform, polished to perfection, while Leora donned flowing robes embroidered with shimmering threads that caught the light like stardust. As they exchanged rings forged from a rare alloy found only on Zephyria 7, the crowd erupted in cheers, sealing their bond not just as individuals but as symbols of hope for interspecies harmony. In the years that followed, their family grew. Against all odds and after some creative medical intervention, they welcomed their first child, a boy named Kalen, whose features bore traces of both parents. His skin glowed faintly like Leora's, while his piercing blue eyes mirrored Rylan's. A daughter soon followed, named Lyra, whose laughter echoed through their home like music. Life wasn't without its challenges. Balancing cultural differences required patience and compromise, especially when raising children who straddled two worlds. Yet, through every hurdle, their love remained steadfast, a beacon guiding them forward. As they watched their children play in the garden one sunny afternoon, Rylan slipped an arm around Leora's waist. "Do you ever regret leaving it all behind?" he asked quietly. She leaned into him, her smile serene. "Not for a single moment. Redemption isn't just about escaping the past. It's about building a future worth living for. And this," she gestured to their family, their home, their life together. "This is everything." He kissed her temple, feeling a profound sense of peace. For the first time in his life, Rylan Carter felt truly whole. Together, he and Leora had forged a legacy, not of war or conquest, but of love, unity, and the unyielding belief that even in the vastness of the universe, two souls could find their way to each other and create something extraordinary. And so, beneath twin suns and amidst the hum of alien winds, they lived, not as soldiers or diplomats, but as partners, parents, and pioneers. Their story became legend, whispered among the stars as proof that love knows no boundaries, not even those between worlds.